Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Emmy the Cat Lady here, and we are picking up with the rest of the story of Vault 22. So we're down here in pest control, and I just spotted, I forgot about this, there are a couple of skill books around here. So there's a Tales of Junked and Jerky Vendor right here. So this was the room where there was the computer about the different species, the mantises and the spore carrier plants and things. So not the most useful, but you know, just slightly better prices is always a nice thing to have. So we're going to go through this door, which leads to food production. So I've turned combat off, but yeah, there's mantises absolutely everywhere in this cave system. So if you're doing the quest for the thorn for Red Lucy, and she sends you for giant mantis eggs, there's a tiny baby one we're going to squish. This is where you come. The mantis uthica, which is the term for an egg sac, is here. So if you're doing that quest for the thorn, this is where you come to get those. If we go this way, it's dead end, so you can see some bits of the cave have collapsed, which means the only other way to go is here. So this needs a key. I think this is the other way that you can get into the cave system, but you have to unlock it and get the key card and things, but you can only open it from the other side. If we follow this path round and up, then we've got another, this little kind of shack door. It takes us into another section of the cave. This is one way though, and then we get in here. So if you remember, we saw this room at the beginning, so this is us back up on level 2, which is oxygen recycling. And there's a room with a computer that doesn't seem to do anything, and then there's the UV lights and things, and we could see this, but the door's blocked off by stuff, like there's desks and lockers and things blocking it up, and this is important for another quest. So if you're here for the Brotherhood, in this locker you'll find your HEPA cartridge filters, which is one of the things that the Brotherhood of Steel want you to get for their bunker. So that's how you get to it, but there's no enemies in this section, but that's where the HEPA filters are. So this is the room that was kind of blocked off, and you can see, even here we've got these massive mushrooms growing and things. So so that's that section. So we're going to make our way back to where we came and find our way into the other part of the caves. Yeah, so now that we've got the key card and things, we can unlock it, and I think that just takes us back to this bit of the caves. Yeah, so there's this room here this is us on the pest control level, that's locked, and you have to get through it, and then there's a terminal there, and there's a big hole in the wall. So we're going to go through this part of the cave. That area's all collapsed, so we can only go this way, and you can get down. This is sort of shallow enough that you can climb up it. So yeah, we've got this massive cave system here, and it's full of mantises and spore plants and mushrooms and flowers that don't need sunlight. Yeah, there's spore plants everywhere, so you can see that the plant life is spreading through this whole system, and then there's mantis eggs, so they're absolutely thriving and reproducing and growing. Yeah. But if we come into this wee section, and she's only here if you are doing the quest. And here is Keely. Hello.
Took your sweet time. I suppose the NCR sent you?
Yes, Angela Williams asked me to come and find you.
She's such a dear. Not like that pompous little pedant she works for. But that's neither here nor there. These plants have gotten completely out of control. I've got a plan to deal with them, but I'll need your help.
Okay.
Good. Meet me on the 2nd level, and I'll explain what needs to be done.
Yeah, so find her here, and then she runs away upstairs. Kind of odd that she's just basically been sat there waiting for somebody to come to the rescue, but as soon as you get there, like, you don't even have to give her a stim pack or anything, and she can just run, and she can just go. Although there is an interesting thing that if you follow her, if I go the right way, which, yeah.
What's this? Did you do these repairs? Not bad. Not bad at all. Saves me time, I guess. See you upstairs.
Yeah, so if you follow her to the elevator and you've repaired the elevator, then she notices, and she's quite impressed by the fact that you have fixed the elevator for her. And then you come back in here. So this is the place that she'd set herself up for the lab.
Ready to begin?
Sure.
Time is of the essence, so I'll be brief. This place is filled with spores that are toxic to humans, and we need to get rid of them. I've pumped the vault full of a highly flammable gas that, once ignited, should destroy the vast majority of spores. There's one problem, though. The gas becomes semi-inert on exposure to oxygen, meaning the gas will have to be ignited close to where it's being introduced. I need you to find the vents where the gas is being pumped and ignite it. Oh, and survive the resulting blast.
Sure.
Good. Return to me when it's done.
Yep, so yeah, she's basically pumped the gas in, and we need to figure out where that is. Okay. Okay, this is very confusing. Is it down on this level? Yeah, that's right. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So yeah, the gas is being pumped in, so there's this bit where the door's taken off. You can see the air's rippling a little bit there, so this is where, but we need to set this on fire and not die. You should probably, fine. So I think, I'm pretty sure that a laser weapon will do it. Let me have a look. There is a flamer down in the common areas that you can grab as well. Okay. Well, that didn't work. Yeah, I'm dead. It's fine. Let's try that again. A bit smarter this time. I don't like you being there. Damn it. Oh, we survived. Only just, but we survived. It is, yeah, the the trick is to fire and then shut the door to stop yourself from, getting burnt, but we survived that time. Possibly because there was no explosion to do any damage to me. Yeah. We did it, but the key is to hide in that room and then fire and then shut the door, but I just couldn't actually do that for some reason. But I have severe burns and probably now look like Keely, but we did it.
Ah, good. You survived. I was beginning to think you hadn't. You'll be pleased to know that the spores should no longer be a problem. Now all that's left is to ensure that none of this ever happens again. The research that led to these abominations must be erased.
Yeah, so she basically wants all the data
I've
gone.
managed to create a connection to the vault's backup system from here. I just have to remotely delete all the files, and we're done here.
Okay.
No, it shouldn't take all that long. Just a few more moments, and that's strange. The system says that the files were accessed recently and copied to an external source. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you?
So you can lie to her and say, no, I've been too busy, did somebody else do it? Or you can say, oh yeah, I did download some files. Or you can say, yeah, Hildern sent me here to get them. So she wants them deleted, basically. You can lie to her, but yeah, I did it.
Yes, that sounds like something he'd do. Well, there's nothing for it then. Those files need to be erased. Hold out your arm and I'll have it done in a flash.
So she's just like, I want to delete it, and you can say, yeah, fine, or you can say, no, I don't want to do that.
So you're gonna be stubborn about it, eh? You're sure I can't change your mind about this? Then you give me no choice.
Oh. Okay. Well, that's not actually going to work. So yeah, I mean, at this point she will attack. I'm sure there's a way that you can talk her around. Okay, she's fine now. Yeah. Normally that wouldn't happen. I'm pretty sure there is a way that you can talk around. So I'm going to reload that save, because yeah, she basically locks down the vault so you can't leave. So yeah, I'd have to kill her to get the passwords, or pickpocket the password. But what we're going to do is, I know there was a way to talk around, but you need to actually have the right science skill in order to do that. So we're gonna do a Programmer's Digest before speaking to her.
Ah, good. You survived. I was beginning to think you hadn't. You'll be pleased to know that the spores should no longer be a problem.
Good.
Now all that's left is to ensure that none of this ever happens again. The research that led to these abominations must be erased.
Okay.
I've managed to create a connection to the vault's backup system from here. I just have to remotely delete all the files, and we're done here.
Will it take long?
No, it shouldn't take all that long. Just a few more moments, and that's strange. The system says that the files were accessed recently and copied to an external source. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you?
Yes, Hildern sent me to get them. So in order to sort of peacefully talk her around, to let you keep the data, you have to tell her the truth.
Yes, that sounds like something he'd do. Well, there's nothing for it then. Those files need to be erased. Hold out your arm and I'll have it done in a flash.
But if you've got science of 70, you can say deleting it will make it more likely that this will happen again.
How do you figure that?
Science isn't just about success. Failures are just as important to learn from.
I suppose the data here could serve as a warning to other scientists. Tell them what paths of research not to follow.
Exactly. Without that knowledge, something similar is bound to occur.
Alright. You convinced me. Take the files back to that buffoon. You make a good point. But I still honestly hope you know what you're doing. I've unlocked the door, so you're free to run along now. Although it pains me to say it, I wouldn't have made it out of here without your help. If you're heading back toward McCarran, tell Dr. Williams that she has my thanks as well.
There we go. So, problem solved. And
Don't mind me.
she's just going to wrap up.
Up here, gather my gear, that sort of thing. I'll be leaving soon enough.
So, yep, that's us done. Keely's just going to finish up and make her own way back when she's ready. So, going to head outside and we'll go back to McCarran to turn in the quest. So, we're just going to hand this over to Thomas Hildern to tell him about what we discovered in Vault 22 and how any data from the research there has to be handled carefully so that something similar doesn't happen again with the spore carriers and the spore plants and things, because it's obviously something that is a contagion in some way. It was, it spreads from person to person. And it's all horror show really, so it is quite important that anybody that makes use of this data is going to be sensible with it. And here, so there's Angela.
Keely just called in. You should have heard the director. But wait up. Now look here. She wouldn't let him finish a sentence. Just reamed him out for sending all those people to the vault. I've never seen his face so red and twitchy. Thanks for keeping her safe. Here's the caps I promised. I knew I had a good feeling about you.
There we go. So she's quite happy. Oh,
Really
800 bottle caps, nice. So she's happy that Keely's fine, and Keely obviously has phoned or radioed or something. It wouldn't have been a phone, I suppose. And really laid into this guy for getting all those people killed. So, hello.
I received a pleasant call from Dr. Keely.
Yeah.
It seems we have you to thank for keeping her alive. Very charitable of you.
Okay, I have got the data.
Wonderful. Excellent work. Let me see it. It'll take a moment to decode on my terminal.
So, by the way, you never warned me about the dangers in that place.
Didn't I? Did you encounter undue difficulties? Clearly not, or you wouldn't be standing here, would you? All that matters is whether the data is...
No, actually, that's not the case.
Williams' decryption algorithms seem to be working. Yes, here it is. The data is mostly uncorrupted. This will make the board of directors finally sit up and take notice. Here then, as promised, an agreeable sum payable upon delivery of the data. You've more than done your part.
So, yep, you can say, I'd be careful with that data. You didn't see those plants in the vault.
Your concerns are perfectly understandable, but I assure you, they're entirely misplaced. We would never use technology that wasn't fully tested. We aren't some motley band of vault alchemists. We're with the government, for goodness sake. Have a little faith in us.
I mean, okay. But yeah, so you do have the option of kind of warning him and saying, look, be careful. Yeah, so you can warn him and say, look, be careful with this data because, it turned into something dangerous. And he's like, oh, well, we're with the government, it'll be fine. But that might not be the case. And we can prove that the problem isn't just isolated to Vault 22. The problem has kind of spread to other places. So we saw that at Big Mountain at X22. So X22 is probably where the spores, the fungi and things actually came from. And that's where patient 0, the first spore carrier, is located. I will link to the Old World Blues video where you can see that. But it's also spread to other places, so particularly of note is Zion Canyon. So what seems to have happened is that shortly after, well, actually I'll tell you when we get there. So we're going to do a magic little teleport over to Zion Canyon, and we're going to have a look at things there. Okay, so here we are in Zion Canyon. Here we go. We found ourselves a couple of giant cazadors on the way, so yeah, they're just cazadors but bigger and tougher, so yeah. Right up. I'll see you over at the first camp. Here we go. So this is one of the first locations in Zion I wanted to visit, so I'll show you where we are on the map. So we are here, so the sort of place where you come in is down here. The Dead Horses camp, where you go to meet Joshua Graham, is here. So we're up in this kind of corner, so you can basically follow the water around, past Windwall Docks, Clearwater Docks, and then here, and as soon as you're around the corner, you'll spot some of our old friends, the spore plants. And this is officially the Vault 22 Dwellers Guard Camp. So we've got some skeletons and the spore plants and more skeletons, and there's some spore carriers and some Vault 22 jumpsuits, so confirms that these people came from Vault 22. So it seems to be that a group, there we go, there's some lore in here. So beware, eventual spirit stalks these canyons. So there's a note in that duffel bag, and we've got, you know, campfire, supplies and spore carriers, more Vault 22 jumpsuits as well, and then there's spore plants up the top. So it seems that basically there was a group of people in the vault that weren't happy and decided to leave the vault and basically travel to somewhere else in the wasteland. And then yeah, up on here there's some more spore plants, so it's a bit of a dangerous place to stumble across, really, because, you know, the spore plants are way up here. But let's have a look at that note that we found. So beware, eventual spirit stalks these canyons. If you're reading this message, then do yourself a favour and turn and run straight out of this canyon. For near 11 months, my people have been engaged in daily battle with the evil spirit of this place, arriving February of last year with a party 118 strong. So, you know, there's about 120 people nearly that left Vault 22 and ended up travelling here. So we were attacked by primitives and forced to defend ourselves, whereupon something began killing us in wide numbers. We have done our absolute best to find and kill this thing, thinking it was a man, because it uses our firearms against us and traps of all kinds, but no man could defy our efforts as this thing has. It is more evil than any man could be. We have been reduced to just 34 of our number. We've lost 6 overseers before me. Some have perished from the sickness in their lungs we carried out of the vault, but that number is small next to the count of friends this thing has murdered. Now that I'm finally made overseer, we are leaving straight away and will not return. If you have come to this seeming paradise, seeking the fresh water, abundant game and shelter you suppose you will find here, do not be deceived. You will find only death here. Leave at once and put miles between you and this place. May God have mercy on us all. J. Hendricks, Overseer, Vault 22 Expedition. So he has said that, you know, they lost a couple of people to the infection, the spores, the lung infection, but something or someone has been killing a lot of them after they've been fighting with what they call primitives, so it'd be the early kind of tribals that ended up here. So that's an interesting one. Okay, my map reading skills are not complete rubbish, but there's a camp so to the northwest of here. It's an unmarked location. There we go, found it. So you can tell when you're approaching a Vault 22 camp here because the spore plants are there. So that's how you know, because this one is an unmarked location, but it is guarded by one of the spore plants. Okay, so this is the original camp from the Vault 22 people, and then they moved down to the camp that we saw. So this location is an unmarked location. There's a hollow log with some sugar bombs. Sure. Yeah, and then say there's some graffiti with the white hands, which is kind of the tribal's way of saying don't go here, it's dangerous. And as I mentioned, there's a little fenced off kind of pen here that, you know, it's quite crude. There's wooden posts and barbed wire, and there's some human skeletons, so we will find out exactly what happened there very shortly. So we're going to make our way out of this part of the canyon, and we're going to head to Stonebones Cave. So just to kind of fill you in, if you've not played through Honest Hearts before, there is a man, and I will do a dedicated video to this man because it's a very, very interesting story, and nothing will point you towards this story at all. It's something that you'd only discover by exploring the location. So the man in question is a man named Randall Clark, and he was an army veteran pre-war, and he was here camping when the bombs fell, and he stayed, and he survived. So he gives a really thorough account of the kind of immediate post-bomb situation. So I don't think there's too many kind of direct hits in this part of the world, but there's obviously radiation will spread over time and things. That's kind of a given, just by its very nature, because it gets into the soil, it gets into the water. You know, the dust will kick up. Yeah, it does rain in Honest Hearts, which is nice. Because you don't really see that in the Mojave, which makes sense that, you know, the Mojave, that side is more deserty than this part. But yeah, so this is the Sorrows camp. So this is the other kind of tribe that you sort of interact with during the course of this this DLC. Randall Clark. So he becomes known as the Survivalist. Oh, here we go. Find that is on the, yeah, about halfway up. So this is Stonebones Cave. So again, the tribals are wary of anything kind of pre-war, and they're also wary of anything related to Randall Clark. So he basically became the kind of guardian of what became the Sorrows tribe. So the places where he had been, they have associated that as a kind of spiritual place, so they won't go in out of respect. But Randall has a few camps dotted about all over the place, because his skills in survival and, you know, being kind of outdoorsy, hunting and fishing and all that kind of stuff, as well as his military experience, has led him to actually be really good at surviving. So Stonebone's Cave here is one of his, there's, yep, traps everywhere. I've put God mode on because I knew that was going to happen. Yeah, so he was obviously very careful, you know, about intruders into his cave and things. So he did set a bunch of traps, which I have just completely forgot about and gone charging through. But if you're playing normally, be wary, because yeah, there's another tripwire. Yeah. Plasma mines. It's got something here. I don't know if this is like a still or something. Lanterns. Some old books. But there is water in the cave. I think that's a still. I think he's set up a still to make some alcohol for himself. Because he's I will do coverage because I want to do a series talking about some of the interesting stories, like side stories that you find in this game. And the Survivalist Randall Clark is one of the most interesting ones to my mind. I think it's absolutely fascinating, and it does give a real insight into, you know, what the situation would be like directly after, you know, nuclear bombs fell. You know, what would happen, you know, for people that weren't, you know, kind of directly in the danger zone. What would that have been like, and how could people survive, you know, that kind of thing. So he's got his Desert Ranger combat armour, and he has lots of supplies. There's coffee and there's lots of ammo and stuff like that. Nice comfy pillow. But we're interested in his journal. So it's one thing that he has done over the years that he spent here. So this is journals from 2096. So remember, the bombs were 2077. So this is almost 20 years later, and he's still here. So year 2096, February 11th, fuckers killed all the men. I think they would have taken the women alive, but Maria and Selena opened fire and some of the others went for their guns, so they shot them down and some of the kids with them. If I could have warned them. February 12th, Elena and Carmen and 5 children still alive being kept in a pen. So remember, we saw a pen at the camp. There are more than 100 of these assholes in blue suits. Every suit says 22 on the back. Why? Armed to the teeth with submachine guns, pistols. Estimate 60% male. Everyone seems to follow the dark-haired guy, but can't get close enough to tell. Assholes are disciplined. Patrols, sentries, they mean business. Say I go in at night and get the women and children out. Where to next? But I have to get them out. Have to. February 13th. Recon during night. Well-organised sentries along most approaches, but stream not covered. Are they sick? Lots of coughing fits. Tuberculosis. Women and children still in pen. Will try to infiltrate by stream tomorrow night. February 14th. They ate them. February 19th. Ambush along Riverside Trail. 6 males killed. Heard their coughing a mile away. Used their grenades to booby trap bodies. Kept half. Secured 6 SMGs, 500 rounds, 10mm, 6 frags. February 20th. Ambush along Riverside Trail. 2 males died. Checking bodies. Killed 2 more with rifle. Shot 1 through calf and let asshole crawl off to spread message. Coughed like I'd shot him through the lungs. February 23rd, ambush, half mile east of Coal Pits Wash, 8 males killed. So this is him keeping records of, so there was a few people that were named, and this was a group of Mexican people who obviously had ended up here trying to find somewhere safe to settle after the bombs. And so what he's describing is that the Vault Dwellers basically captured these people and put them in a pen, and then on Valentine's Day they ate them. So we've got cannibalism going on. And he wanted to rescue them, but he didn't manage to make a plan in time. But, you know, understandable given that there's over 100 of them and one of him. But he set up some ambushes and managed to take out a few of them, left one alive to go back and spread the word that there was something dangerous around. But he also noted a lot of them were coughing and having coughing fits and things, and he thought maybe it was like TB or something. Obviously we know from Vault 22 that it was the spores, and this was what was going to happen. And then there's another entry from that year. So February 28th, ambush in the Narrows, 6 males killed, took a 10mm through the thigh, steel jacket, missed femoral, lucky. Used tourniquet to make sure no blood spattered on rocks back to cave. So he been shot in the leg, but he put a tourniquet on so that he wouldn't leave a trail of blood to lead anybody back to his cave. Set traps all along the entrance passage, as we saw. But if they find me, it'll be a matter of time. Still, 24 confirmed kills in 10 days. At least a third of their combat force. Not bad for an old man. March 2nd. Lucky. Patrol was small. 3 men. Screaming woke me. Point man caught under deadfall. Panic fire ricocheted into cave. Almost hit me. Crawled forward and killed them all with SMGs. Nearly used frags. Stupid. Finger and pin when remembered ricochets. Leaving at once, no other patrols in the area. They'll be searching the Narrows for these 3, taking as much food as I can drag with me and heading to Cave South. So they did eventually find the cave, but the traps were enough for him to be able to kill the 3 men that came into his cave. But he knew that eventually the other Vault Dwellers would follow the trail and find him, so he's like, no, I have to move. Here we go. This is the other cave that we want to visit today. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the name of it again. It's obviously Spanish, but do look out for traps. So, yep. In this cave, if you explore, and I could hear it before I saw it, but we do have a spore carrier in here. So again, there's your connection to Vault 22. There's another spore carrier. A lot of mushrooms, and there's a spore plant. So more spore carriers, more spore plants. Interesting. I'll come up top for more spore plants, spore carriers, some explosive crates. I got you that time. Haha. And here we go. Here's another campsite from Randall. Clark. So again, I mean, you know, he clearly knows what he's doing. You know, all these kind of camps, they're inside caves, which is what he did immediately after the bombs to avoid the radiation. So he basically stayed inside the cave. And there was water running through, so he had enough to survive just about until the radiation levels outside calmed down a bit. I mean, he did have a Geiger counter and stuff, but obviously we saw in this cave as we walked through, there's a bunch of spore carriers and spore plants and things that obviously has come from the people of Vault 22. There's a bed. The duffel bag, so he's the survival cache, so you do get a little achievement for finding all of these and they generally have a really good selection of loot. It is randomised, but there you go. Survivalist bounty. So if you find 1 of 6 of his caches, then you get a little achievement. Plus you also do get a load of good loot and stuff. But again, we're interested really in the story of this man. So we're on 2097, so that's the year after where we were at Stonebones Cave. So this is into the next year. January 13th, the coffers are gone finally, all 34 that still lived. 8 they're dead for strength, then struck out southeast. Victory, 10 months of killing, all I feel is cold. They deserved every goddamn bit of it. So he's basically, we saw that note saying, oh yeah, there's only 34 of us now. So we're out of here, and they went for the cannibalism option again. But then they just left and moved on to a different place. So he's like, yep, that's a victory, but he doesn't really feel that happy about it. But he thinks that they deserved what he did when he killed most of them, because of what they did to the people that he kind of felt responsible for, which was the group of Mexicans. So he, if you dig into his story, you find that he found this group of Mexican people and they couldn't really speak much English, so he didn't really have a great way of communicating with them, but he did help them out with things, and there was one of them got an injury and he left antibiotics and things so that the injury could be treated and that kind of thing. So it's quite an interesting story. But the coffers, as he called them, the Vault 22 dwellers, he's quite happy that they've left and he's killed a bunch of them. Then January 17th, thought I was dreaming, but the screams were real. For a moment thought they'd tricked me, just pretended to leave Zion, then sent a patrol to track me down, but the screams were a woman's. Edged around the corner and passageway to have a look. One vaulter, ankle deep in bear trap, levelled my SMG, but the way she was crying stopped me. How she screamed when she saw me. Been their boogeyman a long time. Her name's Sylvie. Claims she ran away from them, calls them evil people, children of the devil. Turns out they were sick after all, something they caught in a vault they lived in. She never came down with it. Yeah. So help me, I've wound up being her nurse. So this woman that's got caught in one of his bear traps, he's ended up showing mercy and taking her in and treating her injuries and things, because she apparently ran away from the Vault 22 group. January 18th, her story matches what I learned from my interrogations last year, but according to her, let's just say it was bad to be a woman in that group. So when they left, she slipped away. So yeah, he doesn't even want to say exactly what happened, but it seems to have been pretty bad for being a woman, so presumably forced or non-consensual things happening, and potentially forced to kind of bear children or something like that. That's always a possibility. But yeah, and she knows next to nothing about living outside a vault, says she wants to learn, so she wants him to teach her survival techniques and things. And then 2100. Yep, September 9th. Never been so scared in my life. Canada wasn't scary, just sickening. The criminality of it. So he obviously was a veteran of the war when the US annexed Canada. And he says he wasn't scared, but he was sickened by it, which, I mean, that's one of the first things that you see in the whole franchise is American soldiers in power armour executing a Canadian soldier and laughing about it. Literally, that's the first scene that you see. So he's kind of confirming, you know, that was something that he wasn't scared about it, but he was sickened by it. And then the end of the world wasn't scary. When I knew you and Alex were dead, I didn't have anything left to be scared about. I just went on for some reason. I wasn't scared fighting the Vultures. It was like I kept daring them to finish me. When I killed them, I think it was the closest I came to feeling happy in years. So, you know, he's talking about all these things that he's been through and how he wasn't scared of any of them. And then Sylvie is pregnant and I am terrified. So not only is he helped treat this woman's wounds after she got caught in a trap, they've formed a romantic relationship, and now Sylvie is pregnant. I imagine that, you know, birth control options are quite limited in this situation. So he's like, ridiculous old man, a father again at 47 in this world. So he's just like, what is happening here? I'm too old for this. The world's gone to hell, and now I'm going to be a father again. So he's freaking out. And Sylvie is so excited and so trusting, says it's God's will that we have this child, like nothing can go wrong. You see Char, and that's him talking to his wife from before. So she doesn't know about you and Alex, never told her, almost did sometimes, but what you and I had, it seemed wrong to share it. So he just doesn't want to talk about his former wife and son, who he knows they died during the bombs. More like an old man, not wanting his young wife to know how he failed the one who came before her. Hiking into Talkerville for medical books and supplies. This will be done right. I'm sorry, Char. I hope you can forgive me. So again, he's terrified that this is happening, but he's being who he is. He's like, no, I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to go and get the medical textbooks and the supplies that I'm going to need so that we can make sure that this pregnancy goes as smoothly as possible, and he knows what he's doing for delivering the baby. And then 2101, March 5th. Baby was breech, would have been a son, Michael. So unfortunately the past tense there tells us what happened. The baby was breech, and it was a boy, but the past tense tells us that the baby didn't make it. So I did my best to turn him, failed, must have done cesarean too late, had to put Sylvie out and she never woke up. So you had to fully anaesthetise her, and we know that certainly in the modern world here, most of the time cesarean sections are done under sort of local anaesthetic using epidurals and that kind of thing, but he couldn't get the baby turned, and it was too late to do the cesarean, so baby died, and unfortunately Sylvie didn't recover. So he's buried them south of the Narrows, and he's like, at least he was there with them when it happened, rather than his previous wife and son, who he was miles away when they died, and there was nothing, you know, that he couldn't be. And then we get into the poor guy's mental state, which isn't great. And I say, if you read some of his other terminal entries that aren't related to Vault 22, you do get this impression that, you know, he's got suicidal ideation. He's thinking about it. He thinks, why do I keep going on? But he does kind of keep going. So then he says, I think I can finally do it. Blow my fucking brains out all over this goddamn cave. So that's kind of basically the ending to the story of Vault 22. There's a whole group of them, and say 118 people that travelled from Vault 22 ended up here. Basically kidnapped a bunch of people who, you know, were again just looking for somewhere to settle to survive. And then that was the door from earlier, you know, and then they basically killed and ate these people, which is horrific. And then because they took these people that the survivalist had been sort of catering for in some way, he got revenge and took out, you know, a good chunk of the people that came from Vault 22, but even he picked up on the fact that there was something not right about these people because of the coughing, and it made it easier for him to kind of find them and sneak up on them because they were coughing all the time. So he knew where they were, and then they eventually, after the damage that the survivalists had done to them, they were like, we can't stay in this place, obviously something doesn't want us here, there's some kind of evil entity that's killing us, using our guns and whatnot. And of course they kind of ascribe that, the only way they can rationalise it is that, you know, they can't find a person responsible, so it has to be some kind of demon or something like that, you know. They've just kind of rationalised it that way, so they've just decided, no, we're out, and then they ate the people that were dead and then left, which is insane. So they headed southeast, which means that they've gone somewhere else, potentially in the wasteland. But the problem is, as we can see here, anywhere that the Vault 22 people go, they leave the spore plants, and they leave the I'm just gonna unlock that. There we go. And they leave all these things behind, which means that the spore carriers are still around, the spore plants are around, and they're just going to keep spreading. So it is something that, it should have been contained, but it hasn't been contained, and it's spread here. It's present at, Big Mountain. And these spores and things can be passed on. I mean, my headcanon for this, I've got the rebreather, so that protects me. That's, it protects me from drowning. It's going to protect me from the spores. That's my kind of working theory. But it's something that is going to be a problem for the wasteland if something's not done about it. But it's probably too late, because we're looking at the dates. I mean, this was all happening just, a couple of decades after the bombs fell. So the spore carriers and the spore plants have been established here for a long time. Because presumably, there's more than two. And we know that he buried his wife, Sylvie, the Vault 22 woman, and the baby to the south. He buried them. But there's a bunch, there's too many spore carriers in here, so this must have been some of the Vault 22 people that he killed that have ended up in this cave instead. But we can see how it's just spreading, and that to me is really, really dangerous for the wasteland, because it's going to cause problems, and it's going to continue to be a problem, kind of like the it's a bit similar to the tunnelers from Lonesome Road as well. Certainly Ulysses kind of hints that the likelihood of the tunnelers is that they're going to spread and make their way across the wasteland and become a problem, in the Mojave eventually as well. So yeah, it's and that's the problem with these mad science experiments, is that if stuff like that's not contained, especially if it's something dangerous, something contagious, it's the same with the Cazadors. I mean, they were created by insane scientists at Big Empty, and they're everywhere. The death claws, it's all the same kind of thing, and it's this is kind of the highlight of the dangers of doing these kinds of experiments, is that it could be really, really problematic. So that's kind of as much as we know about what happened to the people of Vault 22. Like pretty much all the other vaults in this series that we've talked about so far, the news isn't good. But I think Vault 22 is particularly interesting because it has had severe consequences for the people that stayed in the vault, but also for the wasteland as a whole, because the people left the vault, which means that they've spread these spores across different places, which means that it's something that could go on to have major consequences for the people outside the vault that are just trying to live their lives in the wasteland and rebuild some kind of society. But then something like that comes along, and similar to how the tunnelers potentially could be a threat coming from the divide, if they start moving out of that area and getting into the Mojave, they could become a problem. So it's, again, it's all consequences of mad, uncontrolled science, and science that's not regulated properly. It gets out of control and it becomes a problem. And it's very similar. If you've watched the TV show, Vault 4 has a very similar kind of history to Vault 22, except the difference was that they were basically trying to basically hybridize humans with radiation resistant aquatic creatures, like there's the they call it a gulper. It's obviously an axolotl gulper. It looks like an axolotl, which is a kind of salamander. Well, the gulpers are sort of thought to be based on newts and things. I will get to them in my Science of Foliage series. I will get to some of the creatures that you find in Far Harbour, because I think they're really interesting. But there's the gulper in the TV show, which definitely looks like an axolotl, which would make sense. Axolotls are more likely to be found in California and the very southwest of the United States and Mexico, and they are native to Mexico. And when the axolotls themselves are fascinating creatures, but this one had basically some human aspects. It had human hands, and the inside of its mouth was lined with fingers. It was horrifying, but again, really interesting. Then you get to Vault 4, and the Overseer's got one single eye in the middle of his face. Other people have what look like gills and glowing eyes and things. And then Lucy discovers all these women that are basically pregnant and in stasis, and they're probably carrying some kind of horrific monstrosity inside them. But eventually the creations can overthrow the scientists in the vault and kind of destroyed them. And even at the end, you see the man, and he's like, "Oh no, I still believe that this kind of science can help save humanity," and all the rest of it. So I will get into Vault 4, because again, it's very interesting, but it does follow a very similar kind of pattern to what happened in Vault 22, and it's it's quite disturbing. And again, science, early days of kind of discovery of science and medical science and biology and things was pretty horrific in some ways, but modern times, even using animal testing, and people think, oh, animal testing is flat out evil, and that's something that I used to believe when I was younger as well. But the way it works now, if you're using living animals in scientific research, then it's very, very strictly regulated to ensure that the animal's welfare is taken care of. And that is actually a job that some vets do, is to be... I can't remember what they call it. They do keep changing the kind of title. It's like a sort of official veterinarian. So essentially there's a vet that has to oversee the project to make sure that the animals aren't suffering in any way, that they're being cared for properly, and that kind of thing. So even if they're performing any kind of procedure, that the animals are anaesthetised, or it's all very strictly regulated. And even when it gets to kind of human test subjects as well, which I did do, as I mentioned before. I took part in a research project recently I have a condition called psoriatic arthritis, which is a form of psoriasis. A lot of people get that on their skin, and they get these horrible inflamed, itchy, flaky patches and things, and I do get that on my scalp and things. But the main issue is that the psoriasis causes arthritis for me, so I get inflammation in my joints, and it affects my knees and my hands especially. So I was put onto a relatively new medication. It's one that it's been fully licensed and everything, and it's been through all the clinical trials for efficacy. So but because I was starting on it, I was asked to take part in this research, which is between University of Glasgow and the University of Oxford. And what they were wanting to do is to basically see if they could use markers on blood tests to predict the effectiveness of certain medications for people with psoriatic arthritis. So they basically had to take my blood at certain intervals, and I had to fill out some surveys on my symptoms and how I was feeling. There was a lot of questions about my activity levels and mental health, and how much the joint pain and things has been restricting me. So, and I was happy to do that, because it might help. It's going to help other people like me who have ended up in a situation where this disease is limiting their mobility and limiting their quality of life. But the interesting, the thing about it is that when I've went for the first appointment to see the research nurse at the hospital, and I had a lot of paperwork to fill out, I had to read over, they sent me the brief about what was going to be involved and what I was going to have to do and all the rest of it, and I had to sign consent forms and all sorts of things, because you can't just, in the modern world, it shouldn't be a case that you can just take people and do things without their consent and their kind of understanding and willingness to participate. But that's exactly what Vault-Tec have done in this universe, is that they have basically made a bunch of money selling people safety because they've taken advantage of the fear of nuclear war to the point where they basically said that we'll make sure that this nuclear war is going to happen one way or another. The end, again, this is a spoiler for the TV show, but it's been several months now, so at the end, and they say, Barb says, we can ensure it by dropping the bomb ourselves, and that's not a confirmation that Vault-Tec definitely were the ones that started the nuclear war. To me, that tells us that Vault-Tec were prepared to do that if it didn't happen fast enough for them, basically, that they would take matters into their own hands and they would launch the nukes and start it off. If China didn't do it, or the US didn't do it, that they were prepared to do it, but it doesn't confirm that they definitely did. And I don't know if we'll ever get confirmation of who actually started it, because there's theories about Vault-Tec doing it, there's theories about the aliens doing it, the Zetans, so it's interesting, but yeah, Vault 22 is just an absolute horror show, completely and utterly. So hopefully you found that all quite interesting. I think it is very interesting, if disturbing, but hopefully you found that all interesting. And next week, I'll have to think, it'll probably be a quick easy one next week, because as I've mentioned, I'm packing to move house, and it takes a lot of time, especially when you're somebody that has far too many hobbies and likes to collect things. I'm literally like a dragon hoarding craft supplies and Fallout collectibles, so it's a bit of a job, especially when my mobility is kind of limited, so there's only so much I can get done in one day, but we'll see how it goes, and I'll maybe think of a quick one to cover for next week. Once I've moved and settled, things should fall into place, and I'll be able to make sure that I'm more regular with my content, and potentially adding some new different stuff that's maybe not Fallout related. I'm contemplating doing a bit of a challenge run, because I noticed I haven't played Skyrim for ages, but I picked it up again just for fun, to switch my brain off, because it is fun just exploring the environment in Skyrim and doing all the things. But I think it might be fun to try out the survival mode on that, because I saw that that's been something they've added, and I think it's very similar to the Fallout 4 survival mode, so it might be a fun challenge to try and do something with that, and do a survival mode run through and see how that goes. So let me know if that's something that you think you'd like to see. It might be fun to attempt some challenge runs in some games, but also Dragon Age Veilguard's coming out at the end of the month, and I'm a huge Dragon Age fan as well, so potentially I'll bring you guys along on my first playthrough of that, and we'll see how it goes. I know there's a lot of people that are a bit sceptical about it. I'm quite excited about it. I want to know where that story's going to go after the end of Inquisition, so we shall see. But that's enough for me for just now, because I've been talking for far too long, and I'm still waiting on my grocery delivery, which I don't know when that's going to arrive. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.